Whether you're a new or long-term player, this video is meant to help you determine which of the 12 characters running in 2.3 is worth your pull. So today, we're going to go through every character's pros and cons and give each of them multiple ratings on a scale of 1 to 10 based on the context of your account. To preface this, it's worth mentioning that every single character in these banners, and arguably in the entire game, is a strong unit who can clear the endgame content just fine. You can pull for any character you want and make it work. However, for those of you who want to min-max the value of your account and clear the endgame as fast as possible, as easy as possible, this video is for you and will be what the ratings will be based off of. Let's start with Jiyan, our only limited arrow DPS in the game. For new players lacking DPS units and those who want Whimpering Voice help, he will be an 8 out of 10. Otherwise, he will be a 5 out of 10. So despite being our first 1.0 unit, Jiyan is an extremely strong unit to this day, being one of the best units in Whimpering Voice while still performing very well in Tower of Adversity. For players who lack limited DPSs on their account, especially good AoE DPSs for Wiwa, he's a very valuable unit. Additionally, a big upside to Jiyan compared to other limited units is that he's great for new players and free-to-plays because his best-in-slot teammate is a 4-star, that being Murtefi. The only downside to this is that Murtefi does benefit quite a bit from his sequences and doesn't have another best-in-slot team outside of Jiyan, but that's mostly just a nitpick. Regardless, this still makes Jiyan more free-to-play friendly than other DPSs that may require a premium sub-DPS while also being very easy to use. Next up is Yinlin, the Electro Damage and Liberation Amplifier. For Xiangli Yao mains, she will be a 7 out of 10, otherwise she will be a 3 out of 10. Now Yinlin is a very strong unit, but unfortunately she really only has one team, that being with Xiangli Yao. While she is arguably the best unit for Xiangli Yao, he technically has better options if you're willing to go the extra mile to quickswap him, notably with units like Changli. However, for more casual players who don't want to quickswap, Yinlin would be Xiangli Yao's best option. You can also technically use her with Jinhsi, but she has plenty of other options better than Yinlin. Therefore, while still a strong unit, Yinlin's value comparatively isn't as high as other limited units, especially if you don't pull for her signature, which she relies on more than other units. Speaking of Yinlin's signature, String Master. It's the best generalist rectifier in the game, and arguably the best weapon in the game, so even if you don't pull Yinlin herself, I would heavily consider the weapon to share it across your other rectifier units. Now we have Zhezhi, the best generalist skill buffer in the game. For Carlotta mains plus other skill-based DPSs, like Jinhsi, she will be a 9 out of 10. If you don't have Carlotta or Jinhsi, she will be a 4 out of 10. So Zhezhi is an extremely strong and interesting character, having a very fast rotation and very good damage. She is the best in slot for 2 of the strongest DPSs in the game, one being Carlotta, who she is the definitive best in slot for most cases anyways, and she is also Jinhsi's best in slot at the moment. But technically isn't a perfect synergy with her due to the wasted glacial damage bonus Zhezhi applies. Overall, I wouldn't pull her just for Jinhsi if you already have one of Cantarella, Yinlin, or even Brant, as Zhezhi will only be a slight upgrade, but she's definitely worth the pickup if you intend on playing Carlotta, though even this is not entirely necessary as Carlotta does have other options and can dual carry too. Zhezhi also has a bit of trouble when it comes to Whimpering Voice, and also only has 2 meta teams she fits into at the moment, so if you're not getting either Carlotta or Jinhsi, she is going to be somewhat teamless unless you want to run Lingyang or something. Moving on to Xiangli Yao, our only limited Electro DPS unit. For Yinlin owners or quickswap sweats, he'll be a 7 out of 10. Otherwise, he will be a 3 out of 10. So Xiangli Yao is a very powerful DPS in all game modes. He has plenty of quickswap windows, but can also work without quickswapping with the help of Yinlin. Overall, he's a very good all-around DPS, but he has nothing crazy. Without his premium options, mostly being Yinlin or Changli for very skilled players, there is much less justification to get him compared to other DPSs with better budget alternatives, such as Jiyan, unless you already own those options. Next up, we have Phoebe. For new players lacking DPS units or Zani mains, she'll be a 10 out of 10. Otherwise, she'll be a 7 out of 10. So why is Phoebe rated so high compared to every DPS so far? Well, Phoebe is one of the best DPSs in the entire game, with an entirely free-to-play team comp, being Sanhua and Spectral Rover. This makes her one of, if not the best free-to-play DPS in the game, especially for new players. She doesn't even need Zani to reach this level 2, though Zani will be best in slot with her. The cherry on top is that she is the best unit for overworld exploration, thanks to all her extra dashes, which makes the overall experience just so much more enjoyable. The only drawback I'd say is that on her own, she can be iffy to play in Whimpering Wastes, but it's not completely unmanageable either. Overall, you literally can't go wrong pulling for Phoebe, and if I had to pick one unit for a person starting out the game in 2.3, it would be Phoebe. Now onto the featured character for the first half of 2.3, Zani. For Phoebe owners, she will be a 9 out of 10 in value, otherwise she will be a 4 out of 10. Now, the lack of practical testing makes Zani a relatively hard unit to rate compared to everyone else, but we can say with a fair certainty that Zani will be an amazing DPS in both game modes, as well as being best in slot with Phoebe as a Spectral Frazzle unit. While she is a great pickup for Phoebe, I wouldn't say that Phoebe necessarily needs Zani, as to this day, she has not needed Zani to be a top tier DPS. On the flip side, you could also say that Zani may not need Phoebe either, but in reality, no DPS technically needs a specific character to clear content. The truth is that Zani will probably be significantly worse without Phoebe, as no one else in the game comes close to the outro buff Phoebe gives in her confession form, that being 10% Spectral Res reduction, 100% Spectral Frazzle amplification, and 50% Spectral Frazzle extension. This is why I personally believe that Zani needs Phoebe less than Phoebe needs Zani, which in turn makes Zani a less fallible unit than Phoebe is. But again, Buwa is a game where you can make any unit work, so if you really like her, don't sweat it. Now moving on to the second half of 2.3, starting with Jinhsi. For those who need Toa help, plus if you have Zhezhi, Cantarella, Brant, or Yinlin, she will be an 8 out of 10. Otherwise, she will be a 5 out of 10. To this day, Jinhsi is one of the strongest units in Tower of Adversity, and also quite solid in Whimpering Wastes if you're willing to quickswap her. A very important thing to note about Jinhsi is she doesn't have a completely synergistic premium sub-DPS yet, so her value may possibly get higher in the future. For now though, she can be run with many units like Zhezhi, Cantarella, Brant, Yinlin, or even quickswap with Changli. Again though, as for every other DPS on this list, if you have multiple other limited DPSs on your account, or other special DPSs especially, her value will drop a lot. Now onto Changli. For quickswap sweats plus Brant mains, she will be a 10 out of 10. For casual players of no Brant, she will be a 3 out of 10. So for those who want to dedicate a lot of time learning Changli and perfecting rotations, Changli might be the single most valuable DPS in the game. Being the queen of quickswap, Changli's damage ceiling is ridiculously high in all content, both single target and AoE. Additionally, she can be run with pretty much any DPS unit in the entire game, given enough practice. Quickswap with Xiangli Yao, Phoebe, Jinhsi, Carlotta, hell, even with Jiyan, she can work and produce results. Of course, for more casual players, Brant will allow her to be played in a more hybrid carry style, though quickswapping is still recommended. It is important to note that for more casual players that don't want to invest time and energy to learning how to quickswap with her, performance will go significantly down, especially without Brant. Also, I will just add that she's very nice in the overworld because of Inferno Rider and the fact that she's really good at killing mobs. And now onto Carlotta. For Zhezhi owners, she will be a 10 out of 10. Otherwise, she will be a 7 out of 10. Now, Carlotta is arguably the strongest, easy-to-use DPS we have today, being possibly the best DPS in Tower Adversity and still very strong in Whimpering Wastes. Unlike units like Jiyan and Camellia, who are typically regarded as easy to play, Carlotta has no issue against mobile bosses that dash around or try to run away from her, nor is she as prone to being interrupted. In general, Carlotta just has so many strengths and no notable weaknesses, with an added bonus that she has a very easy time against holograms if that's something you value. Even without Zhezhi, she has good alternatives like Yang or Taoqi for free-to-play, or Brant or Changli for dual DPS. Her value as a pull really only drops if you already have enough DPSs on your account to clear content, but that goes for every other DPS on this list. Now for Roccia. For Camellia and Rover mains who need Rewa help, she will be a 6 out of 10. Otherwise, she will be a 2 out of 10. So the reasoning for Roccia's low placement comes from her redundancy. Roccia is the best sub DS for Camellia, but only by the slightest margin to the free-to-play Sanhua. Although she's really good in Whimpering Waste, Camellia alone can usually just solo that mode regardless, and the same logic applies for Havoc Rover in that they have very good alternatives, though Roccia can help them more in Whimpering Waste. Overall, still a very strong unit, but she is by no means a necessary pull. Now for Brant. If you are a Changli main, he will be a 9 out of 10. Otherwise, he will be a 6 out of 10. So Brant is an extremely versatile unit. It can work in basically any team because of his potential as a healer, shielder, and sub DPS. He can even work as a hyper carry if you really want to. This alone makes him a pretty valuable unit. The main drawback to him is that, with the exception of Changli's team, there's almost always a better replacement for him, and while he is best inside of Changli, Changli doesn't necessarily need Brant, as she can work amazingly with so many other units. Overall, Brant probably needs Changli more than Changli needs Brant, but likewise, both can work completely fine without each other. Another drawback worth mentioning is Brant's insane ER requirements. Normally, I don't fault the character for being hard to build, but Brant's case is pretty extreme as he needs ER on basically every piece along with the typical crit stats. Without a signature, this problem just gets even worse, so still, Brant is an extremely strong and fun DPS. Or sub DPS, my bad, despite his flaws, and he's definitely worth the pickup if you like him. Now finally, we're on to the featured unit of the second half of 2.3, Ciaconna. If you are investing in a future Ever Erosion DPS, she will be an 8 out of 10 at least, maybe? Else she will be a 4 out of 10. So, Ciaconna's value right now is very hard to determine, as she's clearly made for a future Ever Erosion DPS, and it's impossible to say how much that future unit will want Ciaconna. As of right now, she doesn't really have a team, though you could run her with Spectral Frazzle units. So I would really only get Ciaconna if 1, you really like her, or 2, if you're preparing for that future Erosion DPS, who's probably going to be Carlotta. Well, that'll be it for this video, guys, so thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.